I never imagined betrayal would find me in the place I felt safest, in the arms of the man I had promised forever to. For years I believed my marriage was built on trust, on love, on sacrifices I made without hesitation, because that is what wives do, that is what I thought love demanded. Every meal I cooked, every night I stayed awake waiting for him to come home, every dream I shaped around his presence, it all felt like pieces of a life we were building together. And then, in a moment so sharp it felt like a blade sliding into my chest, that illusion shattered. The man I thought would fight for me, protect me, cherish me, instead chose the cruelest betrayal imaginable. He left me, and he left me not for a stranger, but for my own sister. The shock was unbearable, the kind that leaves you frozen in place, unable to breathe, unable to cry, because your body cannot comprehend the cruelty it has just been struck with. I remember the day I found out, the way my sister avoided my eyes, the way his voice trembled not out of guilt, but out of fear of being caught. Their secret, the one they had tried so carefully to bury, rose up between us like a fire that consumed every memory I thought was mine. How could he look at me for years, hold me in his arms, kiss me with promises, and yet be giving pieces of himself to her in the shadows? How could my own sister, the girl who grew up sharing my toys, my secrets, my childhood, become the thief of my happiness? People talk about heartbreak as if it is something that only affects the heart, but when I tell you that my entire body ached, that even the smallest task like lifting a glass of water or stepping out of bed felt like dragging chains across my skin, I mean it. Betrayal is not just emotional, it is physical. It burns through your veins, it poisons every thought, it convinces you that you are worthless, that you were never enough.
Trust is often spoken of as the foundation of every relationship, the invisible thread that holds two souls together, and when that thread is spun between best friends, it becomes even more sacred, because a best friend is not someone you are born with but someone you choose, someone you allow into your life with open arms, someone you believe will never misuse the space you give them. And for me, my best friend was the person I leaned on when life grew heavy, the one who knew my secrets, my weaknesses, my laughter, and my pain. She was the one I trusted to hold my hand when I stumbled and to celebrate with me when I soared, and never for a single moment did I imagine that the same trust one poured into her heart would one day become the weapon she used to wound me the deepest, because betrayal never comes from strangers, it always comes from those closest to us, those we let too close, those we never guarded against, and as I look back, I realize how blind trust had become my greatest weakness, how I believed in her words without hesitation, how I handed over pieces of my life thinking she would treasure them as her own, how I shared my dreams, my plans, my fears, and never once stopped to question that maybe behind her smile was a shadow I refused to see. And trust has this strange way of creating comfort so strong that you forget to watch for cracks, you forget to test it, you forget to imagine that maybe it is not as unbreakable as you believe, and that is why betrayal hurts with a sting sharper than any knife, because you never saw it coming, you never thought you would have to guard yourself from the one person you once called family, the one person you would have sworn on your life would never harm you, and in that blindness I lived, in that comfort I stayed, believing my best friend was the safest place for my heart, believing she was the sister destiny had gifted me, believing that in a world of shifting loyalties and fragile promises she was the one constant. The very soil where betrayal could take root and grow, and maybe that is the cruelest part of trust, that it is always a gamble, it is always a risk, and yet we give it so freely, so completely, because without trust life feels too cold, too lonely, too empty, and I did not want to live in a world where I could not trust the one person who had walked with me through my darkest nights. But what I did not realize was that every laugh we shared, every secret we exchanged, every moment of comfort I leaned on was slowly building a disguise so perfect that even my instincts stayed silent, and when the mask finally fell, when the truth finally broke through, I found myself shattered not just because of what she had done but because of how deeply I had believed in her, how fiercely I had defended her, how much of myself I had tied to the certainty that she would never betray me, and in that moment trust no longer felt like a strength, it felt like the very weakness that had destroyed me, the very blindfold that kept me from seeing the betrayal growing quietly in the shadows, and the weight of that realization is something words can never fully capture, because when trust breaks, It is not just the other person you lose, it is the part of yourself that believed, it is the innocence of thinking you were safe, it is the comfort of knowing someone had your back, and all of that collapses in one devastating moment, leaving you standing in ruins you never prepared for, because who prepares for betrayal from the person you trusted the most, who imagines that the very hands that once wiped away your tears would be the same hands to steal the life you had dreamed of, who believes that trust could become the very trap that cages you in pain so sharp it carves itself into your soul. And as I stood in that wreckage, as I tried to gather the broken pieces of my heart, I could not help but wonder if I had trusted too easily, if I had loved too blindly, if I had believed too foolishly. I could not recognize, and the deeper I think about it, the more I realize how carefully she must have planned it, how she must have balanced the weight of lies in one hand and the mask of friendship in the other, walking through life with me by her side as though nothing was wrong, as though she had not stolen something that belonged to me, as though she had not rewritten the very meaning of loyalty in her own twisted handwriting. And sometimes I ask myself whether she ever wanted to confess, whether there were nights when guilt clawed at her chest, whether she ever looked at me and thought, I should tell her, she deserves to know. But then I remember the ease with which she lived, the calmness in her smile, the way she embraced me without hesitation, and I realize maybe guilt never touched her. Maybe she believed her secret was justified. Maybe in her mind she was not betraying me but protecting herself, and that thought cuts deeper than the secret itself, because how can a best friend ever justify keeping something so cruel, so life-changing, from the one person who trusted her most? And yet she did. She built walls around her truth, she locked it in chambers I could never reach, and she held the key close to her chest as though it were her right, as though it were her destiny, while I walked beside her blind, unknowing, vulnerable, believing every word she spoke. And secrets like that are not just lies, they are prisons, they are cages that trap not just the one who hides them but also the one kept in the dark, because every moment I spent with her was a moment lived in ignorance, every decision I made was one shaped without knowing the truth, and she let me live that way. She let me build my world on a foundation she knew was false, she let me laugh while hiding the storm, and when the secret finally surfaced, when the truth finally clawed its way into the open, it did not just break me, it made me question every memory, every smile, every word we had ever be erased. But what they never understood is that blood cannot be erased, love cannot be erased, and a bond created by life itself cannot be destroyed. It can only be delayed, twisted, stolen, but never truly broken. And yet the pain of knowing she grew up without me, the pain of imagining her calling someone else by the name that was meant for me, is a punishment I never chose, one that was forced upon me by betrayal. And even now when I think about the years I missed, I feel the weight of every birthday I never celebrated, every tear I never wiped, every hug I never gave, because those are not just moments, they are the building blocks of a relationship, they are the roots that connect mother and child, and mine was severed, cut away by someone who smiled in my face while stealing my destiny behind my back. And what makes it worse is that my daughter never knew. She grew up believing the lie, she grew up thinking the love she was given was pure, unaware that it came at the cost of another woman's shattered heart. And that innocence of hers is the cruelest part, because she was not to blame, she did not choose this, she did not ask to be caught in a web of betrayal, and yet she was the center of it, she was the prize in a game I never knew I was playing. And when I finally discovered the truth, when I finally saw the face of the child I had been searching for in my dreams, the bond that had been stolen surged back with such force it nearly crushed me, because no matter how much time had passed, no matter how many years were taken from me, she was still mine. She had always been mine, but time is a cruel thief, and no matter how fiercely I loved her in that moment, I could never go back and relive the years that were stolen. I could never hear her first laugh again, I could never soothe her first cry, I could never be the one she ran to when the world felt too big, and that loss is something words can never fully describe. It is a silence that follows you everywhere. The pain of realizing love was built on lies is a wound that cuts into the deepest parts of the soul, because love is supposed to be the purest truth, the one place where masks fall and hearts stand bare. And when you discover that the love you gave and the love you thought you received were only illusions crafted out of deception, it feels as though the ground beneath you has shattered and left you suspended in a void of disbelief, because every word that once brought comfort now echoes with poison, every memory that once made you smile now drips with betrayal. Every touch that once felt safe now burns like fire against your skin, and it is not only the betrayal itself that destroys you, but the realization that you lived in a lie for so long, blind and trusting, never once doubting that the love surrounding you was genuine, because lies have a way of dressing themselves in sweetness. They mimic warmth, they mimic sincerity, and they weave themselves so deeply into your life that by the time you realize the truth, the lies have already become part of who you are, shaping your choices, your beliefs, your very understanding of love. And when I uncovered the truth, when I realized that the love I had trusted, the loyalty I had believed in, the devotion I had poured myself into, was nothing but a mask hiding greed, envy, and betrayal, I felt a hollowness so vast it swallowed everything inside me, and I could not stop asking myself how I had been so blind, how I had ignored the cracks, how I had silenced the whispers of doubt that sometimes tried to warn me. And the answer was simple yet devastating, because I wanted to believe, I needed to believe. I built my world on the faith that love was stronger than lies, and I never thought someone I loved could twist that faith into their weapon. But that is exactly what happened, and the cruelest part of it all is the way lies reshape your memories, because once the truth comes out, you can never look back at the past the same. Manipulated, painted with dishonesty, and so the pain is not just about the present betrayal, it is about the way it steals your past, the way it rewrites your story and forces you to accept that the life you thought you lived was never truly yours, and that realization is a grief unlike any other, because how do you mourn something that never truly existed? How do you let go of memories that were lies in disguise? How do you trust your own heart again when it was so easily deceived? And the truth is you cannot, not immediately, not completely, because the lies linger, they echo in your mind, they whisper in your sleep, and they poison every attempt at rebuilding, because even if someone else comes into your life with honesty, even if love one day knocks again, you will always hear the faint echoes of the lies that broke you. You will always wonder if this too is a mask, if this too will crumble, if love is ever real at all, and that is the cruelty of discovering that love was built on lies. It robs you of more than just trust in one person, it robs you of your ability to trust love itself. It forces you into a world where every smile feels suspicious, where every kind word feels rehearsed, where every gesture feels like the beginning of another deception. And that paranoia is a prison you never chose to live in, a punishment you never deserved, yet it clings to you, wrapping around your heart like chains forged from the ashes of every lie you once believed. And the weight of those chains is unbearable, because love is supposed to be freedom. It is supposed to be the place where you breathe the easiest, where you feel the safest, where your heart can rest without fear. But when love is revealed as a lie, it becomes suffocating, it becomes a nightmare. It becomes the place where you question yourself the most, wondering if you were ever truly loved or if you were only ever a fool in someone else's game. And that doubt does not fade quickly, it lingers in every corner. Strength to confront the truth does not come in a single moment of courage. It is not a sudden blaze of fire that rises from within. It is born slowly, painfully, through nights of sleepless tears, through days of walking in silence with a heart that feels too heavy to carry. It is built from the ashes of betrayal when you realize no one else will fight for you, no one else will demand answers for the wounds carved into your soul, and you must stand even when your knees tremble, because the truth is a beast, a mirror that reflects not what you wish to see but what you fear most, and facing it means accepting that everything you believed was false, that the life you thought you lived was nothing but shadows, and yet the strength to confront it is the only path toward reclaiming yourself. Because without that confrontation the lies continue to own you, they continue to poison your mind, they continue to whisper that you are too weak, too broken, too blind. And I remember the moment when I realized I could no longer run, no longer pretend, no longer hide behind denial, because denial is comforting but it is also a prison, and I had lived in it too long, wrapping myself in excuses, telling myself maybe there was a reason, maybe there was an explanation, maybe love and friendship had not truly betrayed me. But deep inside I knew, and the truth does not wait patiently in silence, it scratches, it claws, it roars, until it forces you to open your eyes, and that is where strength is born, not in avoiding the pain but in opening yourself fully to it, letting it tear through you, letting it burn away the illusions, because only then can you begin to heal. And the confrontation was not easy. It was standing in front of the very person who had played with my life, who had stolen my daughter, who had smiled while destroying me, and asking for answers I knew would never satisfy me. because no answer could undo the years I had lost.
Wait, I discovered
no
something
could
else.
erase the
I
betrayal.
discovered the core of
no
myself.
apology
The
code.
woman
Who refused to remain a victim, the mother who would not let her stolen bond fade into nothing, the human being who, even when shattered, chose to rise. And strength is not about appearing unhurt. It is not about pretending the wounds do not exist. It is about walking forward with those wounds, wearing them openly, letting them remind you of what you survived, and in confronting the truth, I learned that survival itself is a form of victory, because she wanted me to remain silent, she wanted me to remain blind, she wanted me to remain broken, but instead I spoke, I saw, I stood, and every step I took in that confrontation was a step toward freedom, toward reclaiming the life that was stolen. And it did not mean the pain vanished, it did not mean the scars disappeared, it meant that I was no longer running, no longer hiding, no longer trapped in a world where her lies defined me, because I had faced the truth. And though it nearly destroyed me, it also rebuilt me. It carved me into someone harder, someone wiser, someone who would never again confuse kindness with loyalty, someone who would never again let blind trust be mistaken for strength, because true strength is forged in fire, in betrayal, in pain, and confronting the truth was my fire. It burned everything I thought I knew, but from those flames I rose, carrying not only the pain but also the unshakable strength of a woman who has seen the worst and still refused to bow. Transformation through revenge and justice is not something that happens overnight. It is not a sudden switch where pain simply turns into power. It is a journey that begins in the deepest darkness, where every tear shed becomes fuel, where every memory of betrayal becomes a spark, and where every ounce of love once misplaced becomes sharpened into a weapon of resolve. Because when you are broken, when you are stripped of your innocence, when you are left with nothing, only come when I took back what was mine, when I made her face the weight of what she had done, when I balanced the scales that she had tipped so viciously in her favor. And that is where the seed of transformation begins, not in gentleness but in fury, not in surrender but in rebellion. And as I carried the pain, as I lived with the emptiness of years lost with my daughter, as I replayed the moments of betrayal like an endless film in my mind, I realized that every ounce of suffering could either destroy me or shape me, and I chose to let it shape me. I chose to gather the fragments of myself not into the fragile woman I once was but into someone stronger, someone unyielding, someone who could stand face to face with betrayal and not tremble. And revenge is not always about destruction. It is about reclamation. It is about demanding justice in a world that thought you would remain voiceless. It is about standing tall in the ruins and saying, you cannot erase me, you cannot erase my love, you cannot erase my bond. And transformation begins the moment you stop asking why and start deciding how to make them pay, how to make them see, how to make them feel even a fraction of the suffering they inflicted. And in that shift there is a fire that nothing can extinguish. Because justice is not only a courtroom, it is not only a verdict, it is the act of taking control back into your own hands. And revenge, though often feared, becomes a kind of freedom when it is tied not to hatred but to truth. Because every step I took toward exposing her, every word I spoke that stripped away her lies, every move I made to bring her deceit into the light was not just an act of vengeance, it was an act of liberation. It was me breaking free from the chains she had wrapped around my life. And with every victory, no matter how small, I could feel the transformation deep within me. I could feel the weak, broken woman who once begged for explanations fading, and in her place rose someone. Only for myself but for her, for the bond that had been stolen from us, for the years we had lost, for the future that still belonged to us. And I learned that transformation through revenge is not about becoming cruel like the one who hurt you, it is about rising higher. It is about taking the pain they caused and turning it into something so unbreakable that they can never touch you again. And justice is not always swift, it is not always clean, but when it comes, it carries a power that no betrayal can withstand. Because it is the universe bending back into balance, it is the truth shining so bright it blinds the lies, it is the moment when the one who thought they could control you realizes they have no power left. And in that moment you are not just healed, you are reborn. You are transformed into someone who no longer fears betrayal, who no longer doubts her worth, who no longer waits for the world to hand her peace, because she has taken it for herself. And that is the ultimate transformation, the kind that does not erase the scars but wears them proudly, the kind that does not hide the pain but turns it into strength, the kind that makes sure the betrayal that once broke you becomes the very reason you rise higher than ever before.